What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another Euro 2020 fantasy video. This is probably going to be titled the Matchday 2 preview, but obviously we've still got games for Matchday 1 to be played, but as soon as they're done, we're straight into Matchday 2. So there's not really time to wait for everything to be played and then do this video, so we're just going to have to roll with it, right? That's how it works in the group stages. That's why we absolutely love it. But I'm going to talk about some kind of watch list stuff. I'm going to look at the fixtures gone so far and look at the teams that have played. Any thoughts on that? Some chip strategy, looking at the fixtures that are coming for Matchday 2 and stuff like that as well. So there's loads in this one. Please do give it a like if you enjoy it and hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. Let's jump into it. So let's start off with defenders, right? It's fair to say people are not quite happy with their 4.5 million defenders. Either they haven't kept clean sheets or they just haven't started. So I've picked out some defenders to talk about, right? So this is a bit like a watch list. A few players to avoid now, potentially, and a few players to definitely look at. Now, it's going to cost you a bit more money, but when we've got limitless chip and then you've got the wild card to kind of redistribute your funds, depending on what chips you're using over the next kind of 2 match days, it's possibly doable, right? So the top two, Wijndal, Danea, 4.5 million, haven't started. Now, let's start off with the Netherlands team. They did go 5 at the back, as expected. Pretty much the whole team, bearing in mind De Ligt was ruled out, was about what you would expect, apart from Van Aanholt just starts out of nowhere. Now, obviously, there's a few in the minority that are like, what are you doing? You're an idiot. I'm not watching your videos. But although I did read some Dutch, like I follow quite a few different, I try and follow a few different people from different countries on Twitter and stuff like that, who are really not even necessarily looking at this from a fantasy perspective, but just looking at their team in general from a footballing perspective. And there was an account, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but for the Netherlands, it said they didn't necessarily think that Wijndal was guaranteed to start because Blink could play there. But in the end, he played centre-back, and still Wijndal didn't play. So the fact that he started the previous 2 friendlies and then didn't start, like that, for me, that's just harsh. Like, that's just one of those things you just have to say, yeah, okay, it went wrong. Not much I could do about it. Obviously, the fact that we got subs really does help a lot. Obviously, Austria lost their clean sheet. They only conceded 1. Denmark lost their clean sheet, but like, who cares about that, right? That's just crazy circumstances that should not bother us in a fantasy game. And yeah, so Wijndal just not good at all. Didn't start. We still, at the time of recording this, I still don't know if Torres is going to start from Spain, but I hope that he will at that kind of price. Danea also didn't start. Now, again, following some people that are looking into kind of Belgian media and stuff like that, it seemed quite surprising to a lot of people that he didn't start. Again, he started in, I think he started in one of the friendlies, maybe not both of them, but the one which had a more full-strength side. And a lot of people predicted him to start. And then Boyata kind of came out of nowhere. Like, there was some people, and I'm sure they're going to be in the comments now, I told you he wasn't going to start. But most people seem to think it was for Vermaelen, right? And then Boyata kind of comes out of nowhere. Apparently, it was because he had knowledge of some of the players that he was coming up against. But who knows now? I guess Danea and Wijndal are possibly not options. The only thing is, if Netherlands and Netherlands and Belgium both win their Matchday 2 fixtures, they'll be on 6 points. And then in Matchday 3, perhaps they will start, right, to give players a bit of a rest. But when Wijndal and Ake came on, that's when Ukraine scored twice. What I will say is, and we'll talk about this in a minute, it was a worldie and then a set piece. So it's not, they didn't concede a lot of chances from open play necessarily, especially in that second half. Mings, right, don't laugh, but I thought he played all right, okay? Again, I'm not going to get into England versus Croatia in this video and like how Croatia didn't really create a huge amount, but what Mings needed to do, he did well. He didn't put in a performance where he's going to get dropped. So unless Maguire is back, which I'm not sure he's going to make it for the group stages, I'll be honest. He's only recently started training again. Mings is only 4.5 million. So if you're doing like a wild card for Matchday 2, you could go for Mings, get in that England squad. I mean, by the odds, England's most difficult game was Croatia, and they've won that and they've kept a clean sheet. Scotland and Czech Republic should be easier, but forgetting Czech Republic, Scotland obviously comes with its own, I don't know what the right word is. Drama's not the right word, but it's just a big game, England versus Scotland. So although on paper Scotland's maybe an easier fixture, because it's against England, it probably isn't that easy. But I still think if you're on a wild card, for example, you're looking just to make a transfer, because we should forget there are transfers in this game. You don't have to just use chips all the time. Then Mings in for 4.5 million is decent. Just really quickly on the rest, Munier, Spinazzola and Dumfries. So far, those three defenders for 5.5 million look excellent, right? Munier is so attacking. Like, he was one of the players that I wanted. I just couldn't fit in. And in the end, I just worried too much about Castagna as well. And that was correct, right? It was correct to worry about Castagna, but obviously he's now got an injury that's going to rule him out of the Euros, which is massively unfortunate. Hopefully he comes back in no time again. But Munier should start now. They don't really have anyone else that can play there, and I just think he played so well. Why would he drop him? So he looks great, and obviously Belgium should continue to do well. They've got Denmark and Finland next 2 games. Spinazzola looked brilliant, right? I only put him into my team last minute. I had him in my drafts, and then I took him out. I was like, no, I want an Italian defender. I've spoken about him a lot. He's cheaper than Florenzi. He was so attacking down that left side. And Italy looked really good. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So I really like him. And Dumfries last night was so attacking as well. And at 5.5 million, he just looks good. The only thing that worries me a little bit is how good is the Netherlands defence. It's Austria next, which is fairly difficult. And then the match after, it's going to be North Macedonia, which isn't too bad. I believe it's North Macedonia for them last anyway. So yeah, Dumfries also looks really good. So defenders are interesting. The 4.5s we hoped for, not quite as good. But Mings should be a starter for England until Maguire's back. And hopefully Torres starts for Spain. By the time you watch this video, you might even know that already. So I should have said at the start, right, I'm recording this on Monday morning. I'm trying to remember what day it is, right? Because at this point, your whole calendar is based around football matches. But I'm recording this on Monday morning. So we still got day 4 and day 5 of match day 1 to go. A lot of the questions were around, obviously, match day 2 players to target, and also, you know, have my thoughts changed on any teams or players and stuff like that. So I thought the easiest way was just to go through what we've seen so far. I've watched most of these matches in full. Some of them I've caught just the last half an hour. I think the Netherlands game I caught the second half. Sorry, Austria is the only game I've completely missed. The rest of them I've actually watched all 90 minutes so far. I'm trying to watch as much as possible while also keeping family life happy, etc. Right, so let's talk about the matches. Just let's go one by one. I'll try and be as quickly as possible because obviously there is quite a few matches so far. So Italy won 3-0. Again, a lot of people thought that Turkey were going to put up a bit of a fight. They were poor, but I think Italy made them poor, right? Italy did 2 things really well. I mean, they did a lot well, but 2 specific things was when they lost the ball, they got back into shape and pressed so quickly to win the ball back. And when they had the ball, they kept possession so well. But it wasn't just keeping possession for the sake of it, right? Passing backwards, passing sideways. It was constant, like, balls in, back out, forward as well, progressive passes. And it felt at times like, I mean, I watched the Premier League the most, right? So that's what I'm most comfortable with talking about. To me, it was like Man City, where they had the ball, they're trying to break a team down, and they are constantly making passes in and around and into the box. And that kind of play is difficult to defend against, right? Even just physically having to run all the time, but mentally as well, having to concentrate so much. So Italy were great. I thought all the attackers looked pretty decent. Berardi, who was the cheap guy, started. I don't really see why he wouldn't start the next game if Mancini's going to go for a similar side. Insigne is obviously nailed. He was quite involved. He could have had another goal. And Immobile was decent as well. And to be honest, I said that match day 1 deadline that I liked Immobile. It was just that I preferred other forwards. I had Lukaku, Depay and Ronaldo. Obviously Depay didn't do anything, but Insigne only got like what 2 less points 1 less point anyway. So midfielder, if you can get a goal scoring midfielder in this, it's decent because they get the extra point for the goal and the clean sheet. And without bonus points, that's pretty big. And obviously Demiral, look, it was harsh that he got the own goal, but ultimately Italy deserved to win and they look strong. I think Spinazzola is the defender to get because he's the cheapest out of all the players that started. Obviously, I know Bonucci and I think Chiellini. No, Chiellini might be a bit more expensive actually, but Bonucci and Spinazzola are the same price. So you definitely go for Spinazzola because he just looks so attacking. So thoughts haven't really changed. I wanted to avoid Turkey because they were playing Italy. Yaziki came off at half-time, so as far as cheap midfielders go, Alaba's probably still the one because he's more likely to stay on the pitch for 90 minutes, so that's almost guaranteed, to be honest. So yeah, not too many thoughts changed about Italy. Wales, I guess this match kind of went as expected. Mbolo was decent, right? He had quite a few chances and set quite a few chances up. So I was quite impressed with Switzerland at times. They did find it hard to break Wales down, though. at particular times within the game. Wales, I don't know, they didn't really offer too much. I mean, in the next game, they play Turkey, so maybe you could go for Bale if you're on a limitless chip, Kiefer Moore if you wanted someone that's cheap. Dan James looked okay, I guess. I don't know. I wouldn't be expecting too much from Wales personally. I think if Bale and Ramsey can't turn it on, I just don't know how much they're going to do against Turkey. And I wouldn't now, unless you're already favouring Welsh players for this game, I'm not sure my opinion would change too much because, yes, they're playing Turkey, who lost, but that was against Italy, right? Turkey are going to put up much more of a fight. In fact, the problem with Turkey was they didn't want to make that extra pass. They were trying to get it straight to Yilmaz, who was running down the channels, and at times he did get kind of behind the Italy defence, but they recovered so quickly, and they just needed to keep the ball just one more time, but they just kept going backwards. And so that was the problem, right? And Italy caused that as well. So Wales, I'm not really changing my opinion too much. Switzerland have got to play Italy next, so just not interested in them at all. Obviously, Denmark and Finland's really tough, right? It's a hard thing to talk about. Look, I don't suddenly rate Finland for sure. I mean, I think they had one shot and they scored with it. And under normal circumstances, Schmeichel probably saves that as well. Obviously, Denmark are going to be a weaker team now. For lots of reasons, but I don't really want to sit here and discuss, that we should now target Denmark. I think the fact they're playing Belgium next anyway, Belgium were always favourites, right? But yeah, Finland, I'm not suddenly going for loads of Finnish players or anything like that. Belgium, decent. They've still got Hazard to come back to play 90 minutes. They've still got De Bruyne to come back. Again, I wouldn't really worry about Russia. Russia are playing Finland next. So Zuba, 8.5 million, looks good. The goalkeeper, I'm not sure how much he is, but he could be a decent option. They should have a good chance of getting a clean sheet against Finland. But Belgium absolutely cruised that game for the most part, and they were missing like two of their best players as well. It's just Meunier, I think, now looks like a really decent option from Belgium. I always liked him, and now the fact that he's probably nailed on, he looks decent. England, Croatia, I've already talked about Mings. So Mings is definitely an option for 4.5 while Maguire is out. Trippier, I think, is 5 million as well. It was interesting that Gareth really wanted him in the team, and to the point where he played him left back. I do just wonder, though, if part of that was just for control against Croatia and not wanting to lose that game. Against Scotland, will he put in a Shaw or a Chilwell instead and maybe be on the front foot a little bit more? Chances are we're going to have a lot of possession. I would assume in that game, and maybe Scotland will sit back. We'll see how Scotland play first in their opening game. But I do worry about some of the starters. Like, could Walker be taken out? I mean, Walker has been a mainstay in Southgate's side, so I wouldn't be too concerned. On a limitless chip, Sterling now looks like a good option as well. And obviously Kane wasn't too involved, but that, we know what Kane's like. In another day he scores, right? He had that chance at the back post. With Croatia, to be honest, I wasn't really considering too many Croatian options anyway. I think for Matchday 2, they played Czech Republic, so maybe you could go for some defensive options, especially if you're on like a wild card or something like that. Because I don't think Czech Republic will offer too much. But again, we'll have to wait and see when they've actually played. Austria, Alaba looked decent for sure when he got played further forward. The fact that Arnautovic came on and scored is pretty big. I do wonder if he'll start the next game. It's against Netherlands, so we can wait and see. And then maybe look to target Austria in their final match. And then if Arnautovic is nailed, he will be a very good cheap striker for sure. And Lena was quite attacking as well. So he's someone that I would look at. I think he's 5 million. So again, if you had that kind of price point defender, you could look at someone from Austria, but probably not for the next game. And Netherlands, I feel like I've already kind of spoken about. And Weghorst is a decent cheap striker option now. I wouldn't be completely writing off Depay anytime soon, but Dumfries is the one that you kind of want from a defence. Let's look at the Matchday 2 fixtures. So obviously when I talked about what's happened so far, I have touched on a few of these Matchday 2 fixtures, but let's go through them all, especially for people that are on like limitless chips and wildcards and stuff like that. One thing that I will note from Matchday 1 so far, right, is the odds have pretty much got it spot on. There was a lot of people in the comments like, this team's going to, do well against it. Like Turkey going to do well against Italy, Russia, it's on home soil. They're going to make it difficult for Belgium. Well, both of those teams scored 3 goals. So far, the odds have been pretty correct, right? Netherlands to beat Ukraine, although they did concede a couple of goals. The only result I would say that no one was expecting was Denmark to lose. But again, that is massively extenuating circumstances. I wouldn't put any more faith behind Finland than I had before the tournament, right? So matchday 2, right? So Finland, Russia. I like the idea if you're on a wild card and you're trying to go cheap to still have Hradetsky. Obviously, it depends how you set up. If you've got a bit more money, maybe you can spend a little bit more. But I don't know, that one could be tight, to be honest. But I think Russia will have enough to win that game. Turkey, Wales, again, I wouldn't suddenly be going for loads of Welsh players because Turkey lost. I mean, Bale on limitless, sure. But I think Turkey could offer something. The goalkeeper looked pretty decent. Wales didn't create a huge amount. So let me just check here. I'm going to pronounce his name wrong. It's Kakir, I think. That's how it's pronounced. That's how it's spelled. That's not how it's pronounced. But he's only 4.5 million. So if you're going cheap, I think he might be a good option. But potentially the Russian keeper is a little bit cheaper. Let me just bring him up here. Sorry, not cheaper. A different option. Shunin. He's 5 million though. So maybe you go for the Turkish one if you want someone early on. I still think Italy against Switzerland. Look, Switzerland are... I don't know, a bit. I feel like Switzerland are quite boring to watch. I know I say that as an England fan, having to watch England yesterday not create a huge amount of chances. But they're steady, right? They're fairly solid. I don't know if Italy are going to put another 3 goals past someone, but Italy should win that quite comfortably. So Brady, Insigne, Immobile, Spinazzola all still look really good. I would definitely target Ukraine. As in bring players in and target North Macedonia. I think Yarmolenko, he should be on penalties. He's got a really good goal scoring record for his country as well. Zinchenko, I think, let me just bring the team up here. Zinchenko, if you're on limitless, because he's 5.5. Otherwise, you might go for Karavev. I think that's how you pronounce it. He's 5 million defender. And then in midfield, you've got Malinovsky or Yarmolenko. You probably don't want to go for 2. But the fact that I think Yarmolenko is on penalties, he's probably the one to go for. He's 8.5. Again, if you're on wildcard, maybe you go Malinovsky instead. And then up front, it's Yaremchuk, right? Yaremchuk. I've probably still got that wrong, but he could be a good option again. Belgium, we've already talked about quite a lot. Lukaku, I would be avoiding Denmark anyway for this fixture, to be honest, even if everything was kind of normal. But yeah, Belgium, Lukaku. Hazard might get minutes. We'll have to see if he's going to get 90. Again, on a limitless chip. One thing about the limitless chip is there aren't too many midfielders that absolutely stand out, so you can kind of just pick and just hope, not hope for the best, but maybe go a little bit more kind of, you only live once, just pick whoever. So like, Hazard, for example, if we think he's going to get a start, I quite like the idea of having him for that fixture. Netherlands versus Austria. This is Netherlands' most difficult game, so I probably wouldn't have too many Netherlands players in my teams, whether it's wildcard or limitless. But I think Dumfries could make a case for being in there. And obviously on this day you have to have a captain. So if it's Lukaku or Depay, maybe Dumfries instead. Otherwise you probably are looking at a Ukrainian captain for that day. Whereas on day 1, I still personally think you want an Italian captain, even if it's a defender. And then day 3, England versus Scotland. I think limitless. I think Kane, Sterling, plus Stones if you want to absolutely be sure, but probably Trippier if he's going to start and be on set pieces. Although I did note that Mount took a few corners as well, but if it's a direct free kick, it's mostly going to be Trippier, but it wasn't all the time. In fact, Mount came closer with a direct free kick than Trippier did, so that's worth bearing in mind. Croatia, Czech Republic, the problem with Croatia is I just don't think, let me have a double check here, their players are that kindly priced. Like Modric is 8.5 million, Perisic is 8.5 million. Maybe if Czech Republic look poor against Scotland, we could target them. Rebic started, he's 7 million, could be a cheap striker option. But it depends if you're on wildcard or limitless. I just think if you're on wildcard and you're trying to keep it cheap, Ukraine forward, Netherlands forwards, they're all 7 million as well. So I don't know about Croatia. I didn't really see a lot that I liked against England. But again, that would have been Croatia's toughest game as well as it being England's toughest game, right? Sweden, definitely options against Slovakia. So I've talked about them before in other videos, but you've got Forsberg, 7.5 million midfielder. Otherwise, up front, you've got Isaac, 8 million. Might be worth looking at. Let's see how they do in their opening game. And then on the last day, Personally, I'd still be avoiding Portugal versus Germany. You could go for someone from that game, Ronaldo, Fernandes, Gnabry, Havertz, whoever it is that starts for Germany. But I just think that could be a really tight game. Like, it's interesting to see what happens between France and Germany on match day 1. Like, if Germany lose, maybe they go for it a bit more, but it just doesn't seem worth a fixture targeting. France, obviously, whether you wildcard or limitless, you definitely want players in. Mbappe, Griezmann up front, maybe even Benzema if you're trying to save money and he's fit. And then in defence, you've got Hernandez, Lloris in goal potentially. The midfielders aren't too bad to have, like Pogba or Koeman maybe. The problem is, if you're on like a wild card, they're quite expensive. So Koeman's 9.5 and Pogba's 8.5. So they're probably limitless players only. But if you're on limitless, you probably go for 2 attackers and 1 defender, or one forward and 2 defenders anyway, so they might be worth skipping in midfield. And then Spain versus Poland, this is probably Spain's toughest game, but let's see how they start in match day 1. I think they're going to do pretty well, and let's see who starts up front. Morata, Torres could all be options. One of the defenders is 2. I definitely wouldn't ignore Spain. They wouldn't necessarily be first on my list, but on a limitless chip, for example, when we're looking at midfielders, we could have Insigne from the first day, then maybe Yarmolenko on the second day, possibly Hazard. Then you're looking at kind of day 3 when England play. Which midfielder do you go for there? Maybe Forsberg, maybe Sterling. And then on the last day, I still think Torres is a good option. So maybe something like Insigne, Yarmolenko, just trying to think here, Hazard, Sterling, and Torres could be a good option for limitless. But lots of fixtures. I think the ones that stand out are Ukraine against North Macedonia, France versus Hungary, maybe Sweden versus Slovakia as well. And look, don't ignore Belgium and Italy and teams like that, because they're still going to do well. Okay, and then I got some questions about chips, right? So I've done a whole video about the limitless chip. I've also talked about the wildcard in that and some factors that you should consider. But just to cover them off again here, the reason that I don't like limitless in the knockouts is the fewer teams there are, the less, I guess, advantage there are, because everyone's looking to have players from those teams. So if you used it in the quarterfinals, for example, everyone's already built their team from the last 16, where you get unlimited transfers anyway. Most of us are going to pick, obviously, we're going to pick players from teams we think are going to go through. And if all those players go through, then we've got them anyway. So even if you use a limitless chip, the advantage is lessened by using it in the knockouts. And also, it doesn't necessarily go like this, but one, you're not using it in the last 16 anyway, because you get unlimited transfers. So you're talking about quarterfinals, semi-finals, and the final, and it could just be really cagey games, right? You don't want to be knocked out at that point, obviously, right? You don't want to be knocked out at any point. So I'd say the amount of goals will go down. Obviously, there's fewer, weaker teams as well, right? Right now, limitless is great because you use it in match day 2. You get France versus Hungary, right? France can go for it. It's the opening game. You want to get a good score on the board. You want to get a few goals in that because you've got 2 tough opponents to come afterwards. That's a good time to use it. Or match day 3, Germany versus Hungary, Belgium have got Finland, I think it's Netherlands against North Macedonia, etc. So you want to use limitless in the group stages, in my opinion. Limitless match day 2 versus 3. Look, you're going to have to do what I said in the video yesterday. Go and make a limitless draft for match day 2, a limitless draft for match day 3, and then see which one you either prefer, but also which match day you can cope better without the limitless chip, right? There's pros and cons to both. So I'm looking at the match day now. So in match day 2, there's arguably cheaper players that you could go for, because Belgium have got Denmark, Netherlands have got Austria. It's their 2 toughest games probably. Italy versus Switzerland, that's probably their toughest game as well. But then you've got France versus Hungary is decent. You've got England versus Scotland. But in match day 3, there's better fixtures. Italy versus Wales, better. Belgium versus Finland, better. Netherlands have got North Macedonia, that's better. England have got Czech Republic, that's better. The thing is, all those teams won their first game, right? So that makes the chances of rotation in match day 3 much higher, because if they then win their match day 2 fixture, 6 points, you're through. Okay, there's no doubt about it, and you're probably going to finish top as well. So you use match day 3 to rest some players. I'm sure there's going to be some players in those teams that just play all 3 fixtures regardless, but it comes a lot more difficult, right? So we could see Lukaku get benched, or Kane get benched, or Sterling, or whoever it might be, right? And then you've got to try and pick and choose. So although limitless is good for match day 3 because you can try and guess that rotation, potentially there are cheaper players to get because of rotation. Although for some teams that won't be the case. So for England, they might bench Sterling and Foden, but then they're bringing in like Grealish and Sancho or whoever it might be. And Sancho's quite expensive. So just because there's a rotation doesn't necessarily mean they're cheaper. So I can't give you a straight answer right now because I just don't know which one is better. My instinct is that you go for Limitless Matchday 2 to still leave yourself open to potentially save them the wild card for the quarterfinals. But I got to be honest, with Danae missing out, with Windle missing out, with the fact that I went Carrasco, I've got Backman and Hradetsky as my goalkeepers. I'm probably going to be forced to use all the chips. Limitless and wildcard in the knockout. Not in the knockout stages, in the group stages anyway. So it's just choosing which order to go for them. I think with Matchday 2, you can definitely make a fairly good wildcard side because, like Russia versus Finland, you could target players from that. I think Ukraine have got fairly cheap players that you could go for. They've got a good fixture against North Macedonia. You can skip, like I said, Belgium and Netherlands. England, you've got Mings. He'll definitely... I mean, England are probably going to start most of the same team against Scotland just to get the win. And then you try and fit a few French players in as well. So I think either is potentially good. It just depends how much rotation is in Matchday 3. And don't forget, whether you use Wildcard or Limitless in Matchday 3, it's going to be difficult to guess that rotation anyway. We're unlikely to get loads of leaks. We won't have the team sheets before the games before we have to lock our chips in. So there's all that stuff. And lastly, someone said about saving the wildcard for quarterfinal. And the question was posed, like, my team looks bad. Should I still save it? I mean, obviously not. If you need it now, use it. I don't think the quarterfinals are going to be as bad as we probably think, right? Most of the teams that are playing in the last 16, you can kind of have a good guess about who's going to go through. Will there be some upsets? Possibly and hopefully, as long as it's not England. But most of the time, that's not the case. And then from the knockouts to the quarterfinals, you get 3 transfers anyway, so you can try and fix it. So if your team's in a bad state, don't worry about using the wildcard and the Limitless, both in the group stages. There we go. That is it for this one. If you have enjoyed it, please do give it a like and hit that subscribe button. I don't even know, was that useful? Please do let me know in the comments. Like, it was mostly me just talking through fixtures and just giving some thoughts about players rather than going specifically in lots of detail. But it's so difficult because we've only seen like half the matches so far. Like by the time I've recorded this and uploaded it, I will have seen the team sheet for Scotland versus Czech Republic. But this video will probably go out at 4 o'clock today, which is Monday. So we've still got then Poland, Slovakia to play, Spain, Sweden, then Hungary, Portugal, France, Germany. So there's still 5 matches to play before I've even finished recording this video. So it's the only way I can think about doing it, right? Tomorrow will be team selection, and then the day after it's deadline at 2 o'clock. So we'll have a deadline stream for that, probably between 12 and 1, or 12 to just after 1, something like that. So yeah, there's only so much time to fit the content in with so many matches. So hopefully that was useful. Let me know if there's any feedback on how I can restructure or stuff like that. Please do let me know in the comments. Otherwise, hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. We're coming up to 160k, pushing for 200k. And yeah, good luck with your tinkering on Wildcard or Limitless. I'll try and figure mine out and I'll have it in the team selection tomorrow.